Hello, everyone. I'm hoping that this is coming through clear. Let me just double check. I believe there might be some technical issues coming in. Currently, if anyone is able to view currently, throw a message up in the comments section, just so we can see that this is coming through. Otherwise, Struan on our Scottish side, who I'll introduce shortly, may be able to help us out by making the video public, because I believe that may be the issue, being that it's set to private currently. Until then, I'll wait to see if anyone can actually tune in. I've got our team in Thailand also messaging me saying that the video is currently unavailable for them. So we're not really quite sure what's going on, but hopefully if anyone can see this, put a comment up in the comments box so that we can see that you're tuned in and can hear us loud and clear. Struan, if you're on the other end there, perhaps you can help us out with that one as well, just to make sure that this comes up for everyone over in Thailand.
Yeah, morning everyone. Yeah, if people have the link, it should be coming through now. Let me maybe just. Yeah, it's going through live just now. Okay, I'm going to change the listing, publish. I thought if people had the link, it would come through automatically, but obviously not. Yeah, that should be it now. Do you want to check back with your guys to see if they have the feed coming through?
We will indeed. Hopefully, we can get this up and going. This is always the fun. 2 years in, you'd think that would be sorted on the tech side, but it's always such a challenge. I know I've got YouTube open on my phone, and that's still coming up as private, unfortunately.
On the YouTube?
Yep. There we go. Now I can see us. I think we are officially live. And in fact, yes, I can see there's a slight delay coming through, but to everyone that has finally managed to hopefully join us, we are now officially live with our virtual distillery tour for Glenfiddich. I'm going to introduce my colleague here. This is Struan, our global brand ambassador, who is currently sitting in, from what I can understand, a very cold Scotland.
Yeah, good morning from 2 degrees here in the Highlands of Scotland. It's great to join you, Brett, and everyone in Southeast Asia, a place that I used to call home as well, but I now live in the cold Highlands of Scotland. So yeah, it's a pleasure to join everyone this morning.
Wonderful, and thank you for waking up early. I know that it's not too far after dawn on your side, so very much appreciated from our end. And without keeping anyone else waiting, let's introduce Lauren, who is actually over at the distillery.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Glenfiddich. My name is Lauren, and I'm the Dufton Distillery's brand ambassador. So if I just pan around here, it'll give you a little idea of where I am at the moment. So you can see Stillhouse 2 just behind me there. And I'm just making my way down the main driveway at Glenfiddich. So you might see the pond just coming up in the side in a second, down towards the visitor centre. So yes, as Struan was saying, it's a very cold morning here, but it's also beautiful and sunny, and it's such a lovely time to see Speyside with all of the autumnal colours. So yes, lots of change, but lovely just to be able to show people from further afield what's kind of happening at the distillery at the moment. So behind me is warehouse number 7. This isn't actually used for maturing any casks. It's used as a place to stock some of the shop for the gift shop. And I'm just walking down towards the oldest buildings on site. So you can see the Glenfiddich shop just behind me. But if I just spin around here, you're going to be able to see that's the side of Stillhouse 2. And then this is now into the courtyard area, which you would have perhaps seen in the video just at the beginning there. So these buildings date back to 1886, and the L-shaped building, which is just over in this direction, is actually where William Grant, well, this is the building that William Grant and his family built back all those years ago, and this used to house the distillery. Since we have expanded, so it is now part of the visitor centre, but I'm just going to flip my camera around to give you a better view of it. And what we can see in just a second, let's just head back there, is actually where we used to malt the barley as well. So down here, it's still called the malt barn, but we now use it for visitors. Oh, and we'll have to say good morning to William and his wife. This is where we used to malt the barley up until the late 50s. So you can see that triangular shaped roof, the pagoda shaped roof. This is where the barley used to be dried out during the malting process. And when you guys come and visit, hopefully soon, we'll be able to take you up there and you'll see some of the original flooring that's still in situ in the kiln. So down here, we've got our bottling hall. These are the distillery offices just over to my left. And this will give you a better view of the malt barn here. There we go. So this is currently where we're doing tastings at the end of the tour. And it was formerly our restaurant. We'll just head back up around this way. And you can also see warehouse number 1, which is a traditional dunnage style warehouse. We will be going into one of the warehouses later on during the virtual tour. Sorry, we do have some people wandering around, so you might see some bodies. I don't think they realise they're on camera.
As much as I'm sure it's cold, Lauren, it looks absolutely gorgeous up there at the moment.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's so fresh. It's so sunny.
So how many people are back on site at the distillery currently?
Yeah, so we've got basically everyone's kind of back on site, really. There's still the odd person working from home. I'm just going to keep the camera turned around this way because shortly we're going to go into production. And it's better for you guys to see the distillery than my face. So yeah, we've got around 200 people working on site here, and more or less everyone's back on site. So the distillery didn't stop producing. We didn't shut down or anything during COVID, which is obviously brilliant. Visitor Centre, of course, we can operate, but largely everybody else was still coming to the distillery and getting on with work. So yeah, we're still on relatively strict restrictions, just trying to keep everybody safe, because of course we want to be able to keep producing Glenfiddich. I'm just going to take you up here for a slightly different view of the pond and the distillery site as well. So I've just walked past the malt intake there. So that's where we are currently taking in about 160 tons of malted barley a day. So that's about 5 or 6 deliveries over the course of the day. And most of those actually happen overnight because now that we're back open to visitors, we don't want malt lorries driving up and down that driveway there. So yeah, so I'll just pan you right around so you get a good view of where we are at the moment. And from here, yeah, it's this is obviously the slightly more industrial looking side of the distillery, but I'm going to take you guys into the distillery and we'll head into the mash house.
Now, just before you step in there, just for everyone that's tuned in, provided you have logged into your YouTube account, you can actually put in comments that we can see come up. So if you have questions as we do go through this session, please, by all means, throw them up in the comments section. We'll be able to engage with you that way. And hopefully we'll be able to answer some of those questions as we come through. Now, Struan, the last time I was up in Scotland was probably, I believe, July of 2019. So obviously a few things have changed. We've had some new sections open up properly into full production, and then things took a turn for the worst. How's it been up there over the last sort of 2 years or so?
Yeah, it's a great week we spent up in Dufton. I mean, most of the weeks spent in Dufton are very enjoyable. And you know, for anyone watching on the other side of the world here, it's really a special place up in right in the heart of Speyside. Incredible Highland hospitality, which I think we'll both be testament to. You normally put on a few pounds when you spend a week at Glenfiddich. And yeah, we were lucky to catch the distillery, obviously, just before, you know, global pandemics and things like that. We were one of the first distilleries to kind of go into a quarantine. We continue to produce whiskey, but we really kind of limited the amount of people that were coming on site, really just to protect our people, right? Our whiskey makers and everyone that works there. It's about 200 people a day going into Dufton to go to work. But during that time, like you said, we expanded quite considerably. So the distillery is now, well, Lauren is about to show us, obviously, but we've added a few more bells and whistles, as they say over here. So the distillery definitely got a little bit bigger, and our production capacity really went up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a trip that I came home definitely more than a few pounds heavier. But it was a very good time. Again, anyone that happens to have the chance to go up to Scotland, get in contact with the team over in Thailand, and we'll absolutely make sure you get to enjoy some of that fine Speyside hospitality you're talking about.
I was just thinking that the distillery's grown, but that's not the big news. I think our hair is about 5 times as long as it was when we were last together.
Absolutely. The old COVID haircut's definitely come into play on the Glenfiddich team.
Yeah, for sure.
I think Lauren's about to take us into the mashings.
Hi guys. Yeah, so this is just, I stopped here just to point out that this is our mill room, just the other side of this door. And then up here is into the mash house. So through that window is where milling takes place. So the malted barley is delivered to Glenfiddich, as I was saying, every single day. And we're milling around 10 tons at a time. So this is the barley. I'm sure you've all seen barley before, but if not, this is what it looks like when it comes from the field. This is it malted. So as you can see, very similar state. And then the most important thing here really is the grist. So that's where we've broken it down to reach that starch on the inside of the grain, because what we're really doing in the mashing process is sugar extraction. So when the barley is malted, it's laying out on the floor, it's been soaked in water, germination process is taking place, and it's then dried out. So we're starting to break down those enzymes because we want that starch to convert into sugar. So the barley travels through here from the mill room directly, and it will come down into the mash machines, which you can see are attached to our new mash tun, lovely and shiny. And this is really where the hot water and that grist, that ground down malted barley, is being combined. And this is where the bulk of the sugar extraction is kind of going to start happening. So we're converting that starch into sugar really in the mashing machine. And then we've got it mixing around in here. It's almost like a big pot of porridge. Hopefully you can see it clearly enough there. So we've got the big arm in the middle, which rotates around very slowly. And that's going to mash together that hot water and grist. So what we do is we add the first water. It comes in from here at about 64 degrees Celsius. The second water is then added at around 77 degrees Celsius. And that actually comes down on top. It's called sparge. And as that is being mixed in, we are also draining off the wort as well. So what we get from mashing is around 40,000 litres of wort, a sweet sugary water that will then go on for fermentation. We do add a third water, which is a little bit hotter again, about 86 degrees Celsius. And the third water, although it's still going to be extracting some of those sugars, we're actually going to hold that back to kickstart the next mash. So about 40,000 litres of wort is what is coming from one of these mash tuns to go on for fermentation. It's held in these underbacks, and it then goes on, I'm just going to spin you around, for cooling. And this is just a heat exchanging process, because when it comes out of the mash tun, it's very hot. It's around 70 degrees Celsius, so it needs to be cooled to around 16 degrees Celsius for fermentation. At Glenfiddich, we're mashing around every 1.5 hours. So we've got these 4 mash tuns, which you can see, and that lasts for around 6 hours. Now, what we do have left over at the end is just under 10 tons of that ground down malted barley, which is now something called draff. Beforehand, we would have sold this to the local farmers. They would have fed it to the cows on the farm, but now it's going down to our anaerobic digester. And what's happening down there is we are creating heat, electricity, and biogas as well, which is fueling some of the trucks traveling up and down between here and our site further south. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a better view of mashing just from up at the top of these stairs. It's lovely and warm in here. And actually, one of the best things about coming to the distillery, which I'm sure Brett and Struan will agree with, is all of the different smells. So in here, It's very much that barley malty smell, real cereal notes. We've got the hot water mixing in with the barley, so it's also incredibly warm in here, which is lovely on a day like today. So you can see the big difference there between our new mash tuns and our slightly older mash tuns, which I think perhaps could do with a bit of a polish, maybe a lacquer. So where the new mash tuns are sitting is actually, that's where stillhouse number 1 used to be. But we didn't get rid of the stills. You will see those as we tour around the distillery. So I'm just going to take you further through here. And where we're going next is onto fermentation. So just through this corridor, and as I was saying, those smells, also temperatures really change a lot. They really vary as you're going around the distillery. So yeah, just as soon as you walk in here, you're getting those lovely fruity smells, which is, I mean, I think it's just exactly the same as picking up your glass of Glenfiddich 12, having a little nose in there. So it's more green apples, ripe pears, and these are the washbacks. So this is where fermentation is taking place. So in order to make whiskey, we're using 3 key ingredients: water, malted barley, which is ground down into grist, and of course yeast. So what's going to happen here is we're going to add that wort, the sweet sugary water, which has been reduced down to about 16 degrees Celsius. And we're going to add 250 litres of Maori creamed yeast to each of these washbacks. I'm just going to pan you around and show you here that the guys in production, so our mashmen, although a lot of it is, you know, automated, computerized, they're still fully in control of everything that happens. And this is how they record what's happening during fermentation. So the most important things, are the parts that I'm going to point out because I know most about, is this here is the type of yeast we're using and the amount of yeast. There's the time that fermentation begins, the temperature that it starts at, and the original gravity. So that gives you an indication of the sugar in the liquid. Then we've got the temperature at the end and the final gravity. So there's going to be less sugar in the liquid because it's being converted into alcohol, and that is the role of the yeast. So we've got 24 washbacks in this tun room, and we have another tun room with a further 24. So we've got 48 in total. We fill these up with that sweet sugary water. It's piped in from the top, but the pipe goes all the way down to the bottom. So it looks like it's filling up from the bottom, and we're adding that yeast as well. So during the fermentation period, which is around 68 to 72 hours, what's happening is the yeast is going to absorb the sugar and release 2 different things: alcohol and also carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide will escape through that pipe there out into the atmosphere. And at the end, what we're left with is the wash. That's a strong, sweet, relatively warm beer. So during the fermentation process, the temperature is going to increase as a natural reaction. That's going to go up to around about 32, 33 degrees Celsius. The yeast will then die off, and the temperature will actually drop down before it goes on to distillation. So as you can see, these washbacks are very large. They're holding around 65,000 litres in total, and they're about 5.5, 6 metres in height. So after the fermentation process, we're going to take that strong sweet beer, around 8-9% alcohol by volume, and it's going to go on for distillation. Now I'm going to come down this door here because I think this is one of Struan's favourite places. This is where the smells from fermentation, it's a little bit noisy, sorry, are even stronger. So you've really got that fruity kind of pretty flavors in the air just at the back of, or at the side of the tun room here. And fermentation is incredibly important for the development of those flavors. So over here, Brett, I'm just going to show you, I'm just going to step back a little bit. This is the new tun room. So I've just come out of the old one, and the new one is just at the side here. And we are now seeing our new stillhouse as well, stillhouse number 3. Oh, sorry, Brett, I can't hear you.
I have muted myself as well. The last time I was at Glenfiddich, I was just saying the new still house that's just in front of you there, I believe they were sweetening the stills, so it hadn't even become operational yet. So when I was up there, we walked through still house 1, which was still very much in operation. So a lot has changed since the last time that I was up there. But it's amazing to see how, you know, such big efforts have managed to still continue on, even given the frustrations that we've sort of faced over the last few months and years, as it were. But you're absolutely right. The smells of walking through the distillery and its different sort of components really does set the scene in a way that I don't think you can explain to people 100% without them being able to actually go there. But it is everything that we see, especially in the Glenfiddich 12-year-old. You know, those fresh apples and pears you were talking about, all of that sort of maltiness that still lingers with it. The one thing that's sort of missing from that is definitely the oakiness that we do see, but that obviously comes at a later stage. So it's always good fun getting to go through these different spots. And I think one thing that's really impressive is that what we're talking about in these particular points in the distillery is what we literally classify as distillery character. And that is the essence of what our whiskey sort of tastes like, be it with a 12-year-old or something like the new Grand series that we've had launching in various places around the world. Which, Struan, you've definitely, I think the last time, in fact, that you came to Southeast Asia, you were in Singapore. And funny enough, I was in Bangkok to launch the Glenfiddich Grand Cru.
Yeah, and you know, technology has advanced enough that we can talk to you live, you know, from Scotland, and have a dial in straight from the distillery, which is incredible. But it hasn't advanced enough that people can actually enjoy, you know, the smells, the kind of the tastes. But you know, we do have whiskey that you can sit and nose and taste just now. That aroma that you get from 12-year-old Glenfiddich is the exact same as Lauren was saying as you get coming through fermentation, and that character carries on all the way through to Grand series, which I kind of see as it's really kind of the peak of what we can do with whiskey at Glenfiddich. You know, Grand series is a representation really of everything that's happened at our distillery from 1887 when it's first built, all the way through to the present day. Just each generation perfecting what they do, each generation just maverick kind of pioneering behavior that brought us to Grand series.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, the one thing that we always talk about, unless we're going a heavily peated whiskey, which is quite rare from Glenfiddich, is the fact that this is something that's continuous, be it with a 12-year-old, you know, the new 26 Grand Couronne, or even up to the 50-year-old, you're still going to get that distillery character really coming through. So, you know, when we talk about these key flavors and characteristics, it is something that's so important to, I guess, the identity of Glenfiddich as a brand.
Yeah, and I think it's something that our whiskey makers talk about a lot. So Brian and the team in Whiskey Stocks, they'll really stay very true to the DNA of Glenfiddich. So you won't find that many releases of Glenfiddich that stray away from a very core character. So 12-year-old Glenfiddich, it's obviously, you know, the single malt that put us on the map. It's by far and away, you know, the world's most popular single malt whiskey, but it stays true to a very core character, which is really defined by the area that we're from. You know, we're right in the heart of Speyside. We don't typically make a very smoky or peaty whiskey, although we can. But we have this wonderful water, great quality barley, all the things that happen at the distillery that just give you exactitude and excellence at every point. So the areas that Lauren just took us through, everything that you have to understand about Glenfiddich is about doing things the best that you can. So all that stuff that you just saw, that is the best equipment being run by the best people. And that's what brings you to things like Grand Series. That's what brings you to things like being the world's most awarded single malt whiskey. It doesn't happen by chance, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, as much as we've got that stability in the core range, it's that desire to really step out and push ourselves. And the guys at the distillery are constantly exploring what else they can be doing, even while maintaining that sort of foundation of the distillery notes itself, which is truly incredible. Now, it's just come to my attention, Stu, I'm not sure if this is coming up for you on the platform here, but a question came in asking how many BBL are the 2 mash tuns?
BBL.
Yes, that's a question that I'm looking at as well. So
I guess it's bulk. It's 10,000 litre mash tons. So is that what BBL means, like bulk litres?
I'm not sure, but that's all right. If 90 Ben Smith can clarify what you mean by BBL, we'll be able to get back to you. But in the meantime, a question's just come up saying, do the seasons affect the production process along the year?
Oh, I like that question. So you guys are in Southeast Asia. You don't really have that many seasons. It's like hot and dry, hot and wet, hot and dry, hot and wet. Well, in Scotland, we get obviously all 4. At the moment, we're kind of in the middle of autumn, which is a great time of year to make whiskey. Cold weather outside, lots of water. You really want kind of cold weather to get really good performance from your stills. We're about to go and have a look at the still house with Lauren, and you'll see that in the winter and the autumn, the stills are really kind of firing in their best way. In the summer, we don't get that hot. I mean, you guys will be sitting in 30 degrees most days. It's literally never got to 30 degrees in Scotland. So with the only thing that we might have to navigate would be water. And believe it or not, Scotland is a wet place, but we do occasionally have difficulty in sourcing enough water to make whiskey. And other than that, I suppose we have a famous incident in 2010 where winter played a big role. We have a whiskey called Snow Phoenix, which really was a direct result of some climatic conditions. But otherwise, everything in Speyside, you have to understand, is so well catered to making whiskey that all the seasons kind of play their role quite nicely as well.
Yeah, amazing. Absolutely incredible. I cannot wait to get back on a flight and get up to Glenfiddich at some point. Ideally, if it's nice and cold for me, it'll be nice to have that sort of change of pace. But next time I get up there, I'm hoping that I'll be bringing some friends with me. But I agree. Great question. I think that the seasons is something that a lot of people don't factor in. And I guess the biggest impact that we do see from the weather is the impact on maturation, which we'll get to in a little while, and how the temperature can impact the speed and sort of effect on the whiskey during the maturation process. But with that in mind, I think that Lauren was about to take us for another wonder.
Yes, here we are in Stillhouse 3. So just to quickly go back to the question about the mash tun, we are mashing at around 10.5 tons of malted barley. And after the second water, we're running off about 40,000 litres of wort. But there is a third water that's added as well. So I can find out the exact capacity of the mash tuns. That's absolutely no problem. But just to give you an idea of what we're kind of running with. So Stillhouse number 3 is home to our new stills, or our newest stills. At Glenfiddich, we now have 44 stills, 43 of which are operational. So we've got some of them in here, and we've got some of them in Stillhouse number 2, which I'll walk you guys through as well. But just to give you an idea of what's happening here, all of the stills in Stillhouse number 3 are heated using steam. So you can see we've got our 2 different shaped spirit stills and our wash still. And over on this side, our wash stills are down this side, and we've got our lantern shaped and boil ball stills. So what's happening is we're taking that strong sweet beer, the wash, and it's going into this wash still for the first distillation, which lasts around 5.5 hours. It's being heated from the bottom by steam. That wash is going to boil up inside. The vapors will travel up, down the line arm, and through the condenser at the back. So the most important part that we're getting from the wash still are those low wines, which are about 22% alcohol by volume here at Glenfiddich. The low wines will then go on for their second distillation in these spirit stills here. So the second distillation is a little bit longer. Again, similar process, we're heating them from below, and then the vapor is traveling up still down the line arm. What's important to remember is the reflux that happens, which influences the flavor of the spirit ultimately. So your 2 different shaped stills are going to create 2 different flavors. And also, maybe a little bit oilier or lighter, depending on the shape and size of the stills. But it's going to be combined before we mature. So same process, but this time we're getting a few different parts from the second distillation. Most importantly, the heart, that's the new make spirit that's going to go on for maturation in the cask. And that's around 70%, just over 70% alcohol by volume. The head, which we collect at the beginning of the spirit run, and the tails, which we collect at the end, are going to be combined and redistilled with the next batch of low wines from the first distillation. So we don't have a huge amount that is wasted. The residue from the first distillation is going to go down to our anaerobic digester. This is called pot ale. It's like a thick syrup. And from the second distillation, it's basically a wastewater called spent leaves. Again, this actually will go down to the effluent plant. It goes through the balancing tank, through a bed of river reeds and back into the ecosystem. So I'm just going to walk us down towards the spirit state. So this is wash still number 1 and spirit still number 1 and 2 in stillhouse number 3. And these spirit states here are linked to these 3 stills only. So traditionally, you would have had spirit safes to where all of the spirit was going to be running through the low wines as well. We don't actually need that anymore. But this is just more to show you guys that this is what spirit safes, look like in stillhouse number 3. And ultimately, these 3 stills at the front are actually going to be isolated and used, for experimental purposes, which will be very interesting. So it's just to show you some of the spirit that's running through at the moment. As you can see, completely clear in colour. So at this point, they say it's got around 30–40% of its flavour. The rest is going to come from the casks. And then all of the colour is going to come from the casks as well. I'm just going to take you, oh wow, look at that sunshine up over Balvenie Castle. So just to give you another view from here. So these are the new stills, and then just round the corner there where we walked up, that's where the stills from stillhouse number 1 are housed. The stills need replaced, and sometimes it's only parts of them, maybe every 10 to 15 years or so. But we do get, parts of the stills that last for a little bit longer. And actually, you can see here, sorry, the spirit just bubbling away inside spirit still number 1. So it's great that we can actually see that happening there. And you can see as well just how far the stillhouse actually goes down. So we've got the heating just below the stills there. And what we'll do now is we'll take a little walk over to stillhouse number 2, just to show you what the other stillhouse looks like. So it was built in the 70s. But I think a really important takeaway from this is that although, we got over there just in time, although we have got 43 operational stills, and we're now producing around 21 million litres of spirit, pure alcohol a year, there is still an extremely high level of craftsmanship that goes into creating Glenfiddich. I think lots of people associate craft and craftsmanship on a smaller scale, but we are producing grade 1 spirit every single year. And to get that consistency with 43 stills is no easy task. So although everything looks very you're not seeing lots of people wandering around, we still have a stillman that's working 8-hour shifts, always on shift, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And it's the same for mashing and fermentation. And they are fully in control of every step of the process. It's being monitored. We're doing testing every single morning on site as well. So literally everything that comes into the distillery that we're going to be using, and also every step of the way, is tested and checked in the lab. And we have a nosing panel. So every morning, some of us go down to the lab and we will nose the new make spirit from not only Glenfiddich, but also Balvenie and Coninzi to ensure that it's that right quality before it reaches Brian, our master blender. So yeah, it's, even though we are obviously producing on quite a large scale, we've undergone some expansions. The level of craftsmanship that still goes into creating Glenfiddich is of huge importance. So it's really lovely to see stillhouse number 2. Obviously the stills here are a little bit older, so we've got a few different colours, but I think it matches very well with autumn. Now, still house number 2 is still heated by gas. It was coal up until 1996. So there literally used to be somebody that shoveled the coal into the bottom of the stills. I think the job title was actually like fireman, to keep the stills heated. And we were speaking just to some of the guys in production. It's this first Speyside Whisky Festival at the moment, so we've been doing a few special tours. And they said, if they could pick how they wanted to have their stills heated, they would pick steam every single time, because you've got that consistency and far more control over it as well. I'm just going to point out these little machines here that are attached to the wash stills only. These are called rummagers. People often ask what they are, so it's always good just to point them out. And attached to these rummagers are chains which rotate around the bottom of the still and prevent that hot ale, that syrup that we're going to put down to the anaerobic digester, that prevents it from sticking to the bottom of the still. And then over here, you can see slightly more traditional, we've got the spirit safes, which are linked up to all of the stills. So any low wines, any of the second spirit run, the head, heart and tail, it's all flowing through here. So it's all linked up by pipes. And beforehand, I'm not sure if you can really see those kind of caps over there. There used to be levers on top, and the stillman would come out and move these levers to move the spouts. But now they do it using the computer system. But as I was saying earlier, they are still in control of that. They have to monitor it. They have to make those changes. And here you can get a really good close-up of our condensers. So this is where the vapors are condensed back into liquid and then captured for wherever they are going next. And we are back out at the pond. What a beautiful day it is. It's so sunny.
It's absolutely falling back to memories of being at Glenfiddich, walking through there. It's starting to make me hungry for some haggis, to say the least. But I think it's a really nice way to highlight, just how important it is for both the family that owns William Grant and Sons, as well as all of us that work for him, to understand, the dedication to doing things the right way versus just automating everything and hoping that it turns out for the best. And yes, we've got the big new fancy still house, but at the same time, they're still operating the same way that they used to, just with a few little advances we've gone through. Now, just a quick reminder, I've made the adjustment. I've now got, I'm looking at myself. But if anyone has questions, throw them up into the chat or the comments section, and we'll be able to read through those and answer any as we go through. I'm going to call Struan back on because I know that he's been grounded, going from a global role as a brand ambassador to being stuck in Forres, I believe it is, up in Scotland, about maybe 15, 20 miles from the distillery. How has ambassadorship changed for you?
Changed completely. Different. It's a completely different role, and it's a completely different lifestyle, right? I mean, you've been grounded as well in an equally, it's a beautiful part of the world. You live in Singapore, I live in the Highlands. You make the most of it, but it's a very different lifestyle to what we used to do. In my opinion, a lot of benefits to what we've just gone through. I know it's been a tough year or two for a lot of people, but in terms of the quality of life that we now have, and I live where Lauren is walking around right now. You can see it's a beautiful place. Not only just the whiskey distilleries, but the great food. The beautiful beaches, golf courses, the mountains. It's not a bad place to be locked down, to be honest. So, in saying that, looking forward to getting back on the road, and certainly I do miss kind of the lifestyle of ambassadorship, and also just getting out and seeing people that are big whiskey fans. That's a big part of our job, and something that, Brett, I know you enjoy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the one thing that I'm looking forward to is getting back out and engaging. Glenfiddich's always maintained this maverick mentality of trying to push our boundaries and see sort of what we can do. But a part of that is integrating and working with people who have that similar mindset to come up with really kind of unique engagements and creations. which I'm sure for yourself, being on the global stage, getting to travel to an even larger sort of spectrum than myself, it's something that is so inspiring for all of the brand ambassadors. For myself, going to the distillery and talking to the guys there about their experimentation, that's always very inspiring. But getting to work with people and understanding their interpretation of what it is to be a maverick is also really, really key to keeping us going, especially in times like this.
Yeah, and I think you have to go to this distillery at Glenfiddich with such an open mind to say, yes, this is a big brand. It's very well known around the world, but very real people make this whiskey every day, and every single one of them have a great story. And in most cases, you will learn so much. I mean, I'm fortunate to be at Glenfiddich almost every week. Lauren is there almost every single day. Lauren will tell you that she will learn something new almost every time you chat to George Garrick or you go and chat to George Singer. Actually, we have like so many people called George at Glenfiddich. It's quite incredible. And the just the passion that they have. Glenfiddich is enjoyed all the way around the world. We were doing a project this week. We worked out that we're in 180 different countries, which is quite staggering. It means there's only around 15 countries where you can't buy a bottle of Glenfiddich. And it's really testament to these generations of people that have called Glenfiddich home, who do things a little bit differently. We've had Mavericks all the way through from the founder to the present day, and something like Lauren's about to take us into Warehouse 8. There are things that happen in Warehouse 8 that are genuinely groundbreaking whiskey innovations that we just think are normal. That's the thing about Glenfiddich. Like, you do it well enough and you do it for long enough, people just assume that this is something that happens everywhere. But it's a special place for sure. And to your original point, I definitely feel pretty lucky to spend more time there. I got to be honest.
I can imagine. Can absolutely imagine. Warehouse 8 is one of my favorite parts of the distillery. Again, going back to the smells of being at the distillery, this is the one room when, as soon as you step in there, number one, the temperature, if it's warm outside, immediately drops down. It's this beautiful kind of cool environment with what are famously known, as the Solera vats, very lit up and prized at the back of the entryway there. But it's that smell of maturing whiskey, and it's an absolute sort of symphony of flavors that kind of comes in. There's nothing quite like it. A mixture of that, the mud floors of the Dunnage warehousing, and just that sort of oak that sits in there for so long, bringing forward, be it experiments or some of the more unique and rare whiskeys that are coming out of the distillery.
Hi guys. Oh, I think we're playing unmute there. So yeah, I've got a really beautiful view, a kind of unseen view really, because people don't tend to come up this way over the site. So that's the malt barn that I was talking about earlier, that kind of L-shaped building, the original building. And then as we go over towards this way, you can start seeing the roof of Stillhouse 3 as well. So yeah, what a beautiful morning. I think you must be sending me some good weather, because we haven't had that great weather. I'm just going to point out warehouse number 6 to you here. We can't see inside it just because of the light. It's just not very easy to see. But inside here is actually where the marrying tuns for Glenfiddich 12 sit. So we've got around 700 marrying tuns, and they hold about 2,000 litres in total. And that's where we're marrying together that whiskey that's been matured in ex-American oak and ex-European oak for a minimum of 12 years. It's then being married for around about 3 to 6 months. Warehouse 8, I'm just coming up to. I'm just going to ask Brett a question. Do we have a video of Warehouse 8? Because I think the guys have gone on their break and I am now locked out. The lights are on, but nobody's home. So Warehouse 8 is very important for Glenfiddich 15, the Solera. That's where the great big Solera vat sits. And what's happening there is we're maturing the whiskey for a minimum of 15 years in ex-American and ex-European oak. We're then taking around 10% from the ex-American oak, and it's going into brand new oak casks, which have never been used before. So it's going in there for around about 12 weeks, and then we're taking those 3 different components, and it's basically being married together in a big Solera vat. And this vat holds around 38,000 litres. And it's never been empty. It's always at least half full. So since we introduced it, or since David Stewart created the concept in 1998, it's always had a little bit of whiskey in it. It's always at least half empty. So technically speaking, we could have whiskey that's been in there since 1998. I'm just taking you guys up around the side of Warehouse 8 to see if I can potentially get in this door, but I think they are completely locked. So let's have a little look. But it gives you quite a good view. Just of some of our further warehouses. So we have around 48 warehouses on site in total. So we've got 1 million casks of whiskey maturing at any one time on the Dufton site. And we do have other warehouses elsewhere. So yeah, there's a lot of William Grant and Sons whiskey maturing around Scotland, but of course the most important one being Glenfiddich. And you can see some of the casks sitting outside here as well. So these will just be waiting to be taken away, because in Warehouse 8, what we do is we'll disgorge the casks. So we empty the casks out, and the whiskey then, so, excuse me, goes into the Solera vat. And we do have some other vats as well for whiskies that are available in global travel retail. So that all.
The sound of those casks emptying is something special. I think the only thing that beats that for me would probably be the opportunity of dropping down the giant copper dog that's attached to the Solera vat and listening to that bubbling noise as it drops down through 37,000 liters of mellowing Scotch whiskey. It's a very special part of the distillery.
Yeah. Glenfiddich 15 is genuinely, I think, one of the world's best whiskies, and you get a taste for, the unique place that it's made, the unique process that goes into it. Not every distillery does this, can do it. We've been doing it since 1998, as Lauren mentioned. There's a few Solera systems that have come since in whiskey, but we'd be the first and definitely the largest. So yeah, it's quite an incredible place.
Yeah, I think as well, as Brett was mentioning earlier, just the smell of walking into Warehouse 8 is, there's not like certainly any of the other warehouses on site that I've been into. So we're so lucky to have that. And I think not just the Solera vat, but everything else that's going on in there as well. So you can see some of the marrying tons for the 18, which is done in slightly smaller batches. We've got the Solera vat marrying tons. We've got loads of different shapes and sizes. Maybe not so much shapes, but sizes of casks and different wood types. So yeah, I think part of the, I think it's absolutely the best thing actually really about coming to Glenfiddich is being able to go into Warehouse 8 and that kind of sensory experience. And actually that video is brilliant to see because it's not very often now. It depends on what time you go into the warehouse. So obviously the guys are disgorging the cask quite often, but we probably wouldn't have seen that this morning. There doesn't look to be a huge amount of activity going on currently at Warehouse Number 8 this morning. So really good to see that as well. And I call it the whiskey river. I don't know what the technical term is, but just to watch that whiskey flowing through, then going into the pipes and into the various vats.
Yeah, one fun little fact, and Struan, you may be able to correct me if I'm incorrect on this, but back in 2019, again, I keep living in the past on this, but we were still running the world's most experimental bartender competition. And so currently, I believe in Warehouse 8, hidden away somewhere, is a cask that was laid down by the global winners who were actually from Thailand itself.
They're still there. Yeah, the cask's definitely still there. I saw it. Sometimes casks are moved around, not a huge amount though. So the last couple of times I've been in there, I've seen that. So I have to take a picture of it for you next time, Brett.
They're not even hidden, right? They're right there. I had the 2016 winners were over a couple of weeks ago, so we went and found their casks. They were super excited, and the boys from Thailand did incredibly well making cocktails with fish back in 2019.
Yeah, that was a crazy event. I remember being able to taste their creations before they ended up taking it and heading over to Scotland. And I had a feeling that we were in for something pretty special performance-wise from when they got over there. But for them to have won the global as well and get the experience of being at the distillery and having the opportunity, myself even, and I'm just putting this down as a side note, I still don't have a cask sitting at the distillery, so we'll just put a little check mark that needs to happen the next time I'm up there, hopefully. Wonderful. If anyone has any questions, again, I'll put it out one last time for anyone to put that up in the sort of chat box, the comment section on YouTube there. I've still got that open, can still see everything that's coming through. But Struan, where next is sort of the poignant question for us at the moment with Glenfiddich. It's sort of the question that we're asking both ourselves and everyone else that we engage with. For you, coming into the end of 2021, start of 2022, where next?
Yeah, and it's a campaign that Glenfiddich has been running now for a couple of years. Maybe no better time really to think about what is coming next for our industry and the wider industry that we support and work with. Hospitality, especially bartenders, operators, restaurateurs, chefs. We all have to really think about how our industry has changed, having gone through what we just went through. In the case of the brand at Glenfiddich, just continue what we do best: make great whiskies. Support this great brand home that you've seen. We'll release probably a couple of new whiskies every year. Is our traditional kind of not traditional, but that's our regular kind of schedule. We've got an experimental series coming halfway through next year, which is really exciting. I think experimental series is a kind of change in pace for us. Grand series are all about luxury and elevation. Experimental series is really about testing, and it's about pushing boundaries really and seeing what works, what doesn't. I think you're laughing because there's a lot of experimentations that won't see the light of day. Obviously, we're only going to, bottle the ones that stay very true to our house style and also stay true to our sense of quality. And that's what's kind of keeping us excited the following year. At the moment, we're doing Mr. Porter partnership. Try saying that 5 times. I've got quite a sore throat, so not too easy. And that's a ballot, which has got some huge excitement. You'll see some buzz on social media for that as well. And that's a whiskey that, I definitely hang my hat on that one. That's a very cool Glenfiddich, which is going live in the coming weeks. Yeah,
amazing. I was chuckling slightly knowing some of the crazy things that they're playing with and some of what's metaphorically and literally buried inside of Warehouse 8 itself when it comes to those experiments. Also, I was chuckling because I've had another question come through. Is there any rare bottle next to Struan right now that we can see?
Do you know what? There's no bottles. But I'm going to do a bit of Lauren. I have got a stag.
I think that's a pretty impressive collectible right there, to say the least.
And I'm actually in a hunting lodge in the Highlands, so that's and actually it's 9 o'clock in the morning, so luckily there's no whiskey around me because it's a bit early even for an ambassador, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. As I said, I'm very grateful that we were able to get you guys out of bed to take us on a bit of a wander around Glenfiddich. A couple more comments have come through that it was a great melody of the whiskey pouring out of the casks on that video, and also happy to take care of whichever experiments you don't want to bottle. So I dare say we might have a few fans tuned in that are looking forward to seeing what comes out of the distillery in that sort of where next mentality.
There's no shortage of volunteers for testing Glenfiddich, I can tell you that much. But yeah, the great thing is whenever you think you have a great idea for an experiment and you tell Brian Kinsman, the malt master, normally he's already done it, and normally he already knows if it works or not. So yeah, rest assured that there's great things coming from Glenfiddich. We always push the boundaries. There's mavericks all the way from the grain to the glass at that distillery and beyond. And I hope you guys are buzzing to see what's coming next from our brand.
Absolutely. Now, that wraps up our distillery tour of the Glenfiddich. If anyone wants to keep up with what's happening with the brand in Thailand, please jump on Instagram and follow thevalleyofthedeer.th. Alternatively, we have got obviously the Glenfiddich Global Instagram or Glenfiddich SEA. Both of those you can type in. If you want to follow along with Struan, he is famously known as the Whiskey Beard on Instagram for very obvious reasons. And Lauren, maybe you could chime in because I haven't got yours off the top of mind at the moment.
Speyside Lauren.
Speyside Lauren, there we go. Mine is in my handle there, at Bailey of the Deer. Thank you all for joining us. Now, this link will remain live on YouTube if you do want to revisit and just sort of fulfill any of those notes that you may have sort of skipped over as we're running through. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I hope you enjoyed and stay safe. I look forward to seeing all of you hopefully very soon.
Bye, guys. Thanks so much. Cheers.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.